Well, very nice. Wow. All you have to say is good morning, and the room goes to quiet and silence. I appreciate that. Good morning. I'm Travis Stovall, the Vice Chair of the TriMet Board of Directors. Our illustrious president is actually unable to join us today, and as you can see, we are actually few. That tends to happen this time of year once you get into the holidays. We don't quite have as many folks on the board that actually are able to make it. So we're actually going to be missing 3 of our 7 board members. Actually, Director Edwards is going to be here in just a few moments, but we will go ahead and start the public forum. I will say that we actually have a packed agenda today, and so we're going to be moving things right along. We're going to keep the actual testimonies to 3 minutes just because we do need to move into the business meeting as soon as possible. We actually will lose another of the board members this morning to another meeting at 11:45. And so we need to make sure that we have all of the board's business done by then to ensure that we can move forward with the votes that we need to move forward with this morning and get the business of TriMet completed. So we are actually going to ask everybody to maintain the 3 minutes. Again, that's going to be very helpful for us to be able to move through the board's business this morning. So again, thank everyone for coming. We always greatly appreciate the interaction and the civic involvement. So here in just a few moments, I will open up the public forum, again, which is intended to hear from community members on the matters that come before the board of directors. If your issue is not within the jurisdiction of the board, TriMet staff is here, both here and throughout the room, to listen to your concerns and answer any questions. We'll highlight if something specific comes up, we can highlight which TriMet staff members available. And those who are scheduled to speak, we had sign up about 30 minutes before the public hearing opened, and the comments will be taken in order that they were signed up. Written comments, if we've already received them online or through the mail, they've already been shared with the board. And any of the comment cards that are completed this morning will also be shared with the board, and we become part of the formal public forum record. The public forum will last for roughly about 45 minutes, but again, if we can keep our comments pretty tight, that would be extremely appreciated as we want to move to get to the actual business meeting. But again, I don't want to make it sound like we are not valuing the public comment, because we do significantly. I know every single board member likes to hear from the stakeholders, the civic folks, all of the riders, and all of the public to make sure that we make the best decisions. If you wish to share additional information after your 3 minutes, you can include them in the comment cards. So at this point, public comment will be taken now, and I will call you up 2 at a time. Please, as I call your name, if you could join us at the table here in front of us. The very first person, we have Christine Watts. So Christine, if you want to come up and join us at the table. And then Serenity Ebert. All right, Christine, if you could state your name and then.
My name is Christine Watts, and I am the founder of Civil Unrest Bicycle Club. We are a disability advocacy group. I'm here today to ask that TriMet allowed all tricycles on the MAX trains, adult tricycles, recumbent tricycles, and adaptive tricycles are generally ridden by somebody with a disability, and not allowing such forms of personal transportation on the MAX train causes a hardship and puts a disabled more at risk of injury, as well as being a victim of a crime. Examples of their personal mode of transportation is vandalized or stolen. Currently, the rules of what types of bikes are allowed on board on TriMet's website is as follows. Only single-seat, two-wheel bikes, folding bikes, and recumbents the size of a standard bike are allowed on TriMet. tandems, and bikes with oversized wheels, 3 or more wheels, trailers, or those powered by an internal combustion engine cannot be accommodated. Electric bikes with a sealed battery compartment are permitted. So for me, there's a little confusion if the rules are restricting tricycles or, say, a bicycle with 1 or 2 training wheels attached. Since bi means 2 and tri means 3, I feel that clarification is needed on that rule.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, my name is Serenity Ebert. I am with the Civil Unrest Bicycle Club. I've lived downtown for 10 years. I depend on public transit to navigate the city. I want to talk to you today about transportation equity. I am a disabled cyclist. I use my walker or my trike as my mobility devices. I feel like "or" is an important distinction here, because whichever one I'm using, I don't have the benefit of the other. For example, when I am out with my walker, I frequently wish I had my trike so I can move faster and more easily. And when I'm on my trike, I can't simply get off and go run to get my walker. A while ago, I was informed that I can't take my trike on transit as a mobility device. Oddly enough, I was on the streetcar at the time, which is not operated by TriMet. Now, you could argue that I have equal access because I can use my walker on transit. But is it fair or equitable that I can't use my other mobility device, the one that allows me to more fully participate? This summer, I applied for a reasonable accommodation, which was denied on account of my ability to ride TriMet with my walker. Was it also due in part to incorrect measurements taken when I filled out TriMet's earlier alternate wheeled mobility device application? Who's to say? I was also told that an adult tricycle is not a mobility device. Now let's talk about bicycles. TriMet policy also says that bicycles with more than 2 wheels are not allowed. So I can't take my trike as a mobility device or a bike. Unlike my fellow non-disabled cyclists, I can't use public transportation to get to cycling events that I can't ride to or back from. What do I do? Where's the equity in that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Serenity. Any questions from the board?
I appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you very, very much. right, the next two that we have scheduled for testimony, Cal Toth and Connie Kirk.
Good morning, members of the board for TriMet. Full disclosure, Connie is my wife. So she'll keep me honest and straight with whatever I say. So a couple of things. I'll try to do it in less than 3 minutes. So my name is Cal Toth. I'm a retired professor from Portland State University in a software engineering program and a professional engineer. I have a little bit of experience in traffic analysis and queuing theory, so I want to say something about that. I'm a member of the Goose Hollow Foothills League, which is the neighborhood association abutting or surrounding, if you like, the TriMet Max stop that we're talking about, Kings Hill. And I'd like just want to make sure that you've received a letter dated October 18th, 2018 by the GHFL president to Thomas Marcraft, opposing the proposed closure of Kings Hill Max Stop. I'm not really here speaking. I haven't been asked to speak on behalf of the board, so I'm really speaking on behalf of of myself, and just trying to point out a couple of things that happened to show up in that letter. There are a large number of retired folks, students, Lincoln High School, in the immediate neighborhood, the Lutheran Church, kitty corner right there, kitty corner to the stop. As you know, the Lincoln High School is being redeveloped. There's going to be evening classes at Lincoln High School that will increase the usage in that area. And a lot of people depend on TriMet, partly because it's viewed as a safer place to go, despite the comments made by one of the TriMet briefings we've attended in early October. It's a safer place to go, and we feel that it should be kept open for a lot of reasons. One of the big reasons is that the Central City 2035 plan upzoned the entire area, including other parts of the Central City, of course. But it did a lot there, and that's really enabled a number of developments, including the press blocks, the Oregonian, which, as you may have noticed, has just been the demolishing of the old building has just begun, and the new construction will be going on over the next couple of years. And it's right next to the huge project at the stadium. Now, besides Lincoln High School redevelopment, the Butler block, which is owned by TriMet, immediately next to the Max stop, will also have some multi-unit building put in. So there's going to be thousands of people in this area that aren't there yet, and in a way I'd like to speak on their behalf because they don't know they're going to be there yet, but and they could be arriving from many different parts of North America to live in this particular area. Another dimension to all this, and this is partly because of my own background in queuing theory and traffic analysis and software, is that by removing one stop, that could increase the queuing problem and really slow down the trains rather than speed them up. So whatever analysis was done, which has not been released, none of us have had a chance to see how the 45 seconds will be saved, could be entirely incorrect. So I believe that by reducing the number of stops, that could increase the queuing problem and delay the trains rather than improve the throughput.
So that's your 3 minutes. If you could
Thank
go
you.
ahead and wrap it, that'd be excellent.
I'm wrapped up.
Thanks a lot, Cal. Connie?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Stovall, and to TriMet for your visionary planning. I want to thank you for the work you've done for our city. My name is Connie Kirk. I am a resident in Goose Hollow. I live at the Legends condominium. Others will speak in more detail about the reasons to advocate keeping the Kings Hill stop open, but I'll just hit the main points. One of the rationales for denying Block 7 rezoning for the Multnomah Athletic Club, and I should add I am not a member, was that Mayor Hales and City Council noted that there were the MAC had a stop. There were stops in the area, and so they were denied that rezoning. And the MAC, to its credit, has done a phenomenal job encouraging its membership and its employees. It has 21,000 members and over 600 employees. They rely on that stop. To take that stop away, I worry, would create a latent demand and encourage people to drive, which would further congest our area. And the MAC can speak more to their issues. There are so many here. Hitting to safety, the Kings Hill stop truly is the safest stop right now for Lincoln High School students, for women traveling. I sent TriMet a study on fear and safety in the transit environment, and essentially city planning from the purview of women and people with special needs. We have different needs when we travel. That Kings Hill stop is in a very well-lit place. For me to take the MAX to go to either stop actually feels like a hazard, and I really rely on that, as many women do. Also, to dovetail those who have spoken before, and also my dear neighbor and friend, Mr. Salomon, will speak to issues of people with disabilities or special abilities. But in speaking with people in my building and in the surrounding area, we need to keep that stop open for them. People with walkers, canes, scooters, and I would say 85% of my building is over 65. For them to have to get off at Collins Circle at the Goose Hollow stop is very precarious for them. And for those who have to get off at Providence Park, it's also precarious. A few blocks for the able-bodied person isn't anything, but for people, with those mobility needs, it is, as some have said, life and death. It really is critical that the Kings Hill stop is open. Parents having to navigate strollers at Collins Circle, they too need the Kings Hill stop. And in bad weather, forget it. It's just very difficult for anyone to take a wheel in their wheelchair or in their scooter up that hill during inclement weather. I guess the bottom line for me is that, and you'll hear so much testimony, is that this is a stop that's already in place. It's an infrastructure that's beautiful, that's usable. And it just strikes me, we were told that there are corporate interests, multi-billion-dollar companies who want to save time. It just strikes me that we shouldn't have to highlight or place above the needs of people. Have special needs, and the needs of corporations should not so supersede the needs of people with special needs and our neighborhood. We are a very tight neighborhood. There are also area businesses who will be impacted by this, small businesses, people at the Equilibrium Chiropractic Center, at the Eye Center. Their patients rely on that stop as well. So it, again, just strikes me that our very special friends, neighbors, small business owners, our needs should not be supplanted by the needs of corporate interests and multi-billion-dollar companies. I think the moral imperative is there. There are certainly strong reasons, queuing theory, other people can speak to this. But it's really important in this day and time for those of us to speak on behalf of people with needs. And there are people here who do not have big marketing campaigns, and they do not have shares of stock in these fine companies, though they are. For us and for our neighbors, it's absolutely paramount to keep Kings Hill open. And though people will say off the top of their heads, oh, there are 3 stops, we don't need that middle stop, they don't know what it's like to have to navigate on the streets in good or bad weather, and they don't know what it's like. And I think of the people in my building. We have people, greatest generation people from World War II. They're just barely getting from A to B. And I just feel we owe it to them and to all the people in our neighborhood and in all areas of the city to keep this stop open. And I just want to thank you so much for your openness for hearing us today. Because, if we don't speak, who will? And I admire the many companies that add their voices and create jobs, but I think everyone can agree that 30 seconds of time saved, which won't even be time saved, as Cal spoke, it won't save time to close our stop. So I I thank you for your time, and I
Thank you.
strongly advocate for keeping our stop open.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is actually, we're keeping time on a phone. Our normal system is not available to us right now. So you'll hear a little alarm go off, and it'll go off 4 times. It's nice and soft, but that's kind of the note to let's wrap up the comments if how possible. So next two is going to be Sherry Solomon and Daniel Solomon.
Let my son go first.
That is fine.
Okay. My name is Daniel Salomon. I have an invisible disability. I am a person on the autism spectrum. I am neurodiverse. I partially moved to Portland from the East Coast because of its excellent travel ability, so I'm overall very happy with the pedestrian system in Portland. I want to keep what is already accessible to my disability and ability and change only what is necessary to better serve the equity of underrepresented groups, the common good, the planet, and future generations, including my own. As a disabled person who is active in my local neighborhood association, the Goose Hollow Foothills League, GHFL, I am concerned about PBOT and TriMet future proposals which are trying to make the walkability, bikeability, and public transportation more centered on commuters at the expense of someone like myself who uses walkability and public transportation for more than just commuting, like going to church, doctor's appointments, going to events, social engagements, and recreation. Although I welcome trying to make our pedestrian and public transportation system more accessible to commuters to reduce automobile use to fight climate change and local pollution problems, creating a more commuter culture on the streets of Portland, including the removal of max stops just to save a couple minutes of commuting time, is insensitive to people like myself who need these extra stops to more efficiently make bus transfers and reach our destinations on foot quicker. Also, because of my type of disability and ability, I am also beginning to have the East Coast problem of being shoved out of the way by commuters because of the pace of my walking and moving, which for my disability is very violating, intimidating, jarring, stressful, anxiety-producing, off-putting, and traumatically triggering and depressing. To a person with mobility issues, this type of behavior could be fatal. So I'm asking that PBOT and TriMet balance making the system more commuter-friendly with being more sensitive to the psychological, environmental psychological, eco-psychological, and psychosocial needs of neurodiversity and the physical safety needs of peoples with physical disabilities and seniors. Looking forward, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hello, my name is Sherry Salomon, and I'm on the board of the GHFL, although I am not speaking by any means as a person that is as a person on the board. I'm coming as my own individual self. And I wanted to support Professor Michael McGaffey's letter, which was already sent earlier, and the issues that are raised by people that are far more knowledgeable about the technological piece and so on. But just to share my own personal experience, my family moved to Goose Hollow 5 going on 6 years ago to live in a walkable, vibrant neighborhood close to public transportation. Our family, and this is our son Daniel, frequently depend on the wide array of public transportation services TriMet offers, which we're very grateful for, I might add, so thank you. This includes the MAX stop at the Kings Hill Salmon Street stop. As we plan to age in place, the MAX line will become more and more important for myself and my husband, who has a seizure disorder and will be turning 80 soon. My husband and I are what Leona Helmsley famously quipped, the little people who play taxes. We are not the 1% giant corporations that are driving this attempt to close 4 stops to save 2 minutes for the convenience of Intel and Nike and whoever else is buttering the bread of TriMet. It's what Al Sharpton talked about, taking from the needy to give to the greedy. In a democracy, I have the right to protest, and I will continue to protest if this attempt to railroad the closure of these 4 stops and for just the sake and convenience of corporate interests. I will persist and I will resist. I'm not going to go away. I'm not going to give up. And I am very, very angry. I am very, very angry that this is even on the table, that we even need to be here today. And I'd also like to say that the time is very inconvenient for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that would have shown up if this had been at a more convenient time and easier access and so on. But it's what it is, so we made an attempt to get here today. But I thank you for listening, and I'm through.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you making it down here. And Daniel, again, thank you for your testimony.
Oh, you're welcome.
The next two, we have Charles Opimsby and Mark Velke.
Yes, good morning. My name is Charles Armsby. I go by Skip. I live on the north end of Lake Oswego on Highway 43. This is in regards to transit-dependent riders in Highway 43 all the way from Portland to Oregon City. A year ago, I brought forth to TriMet the issue of the midline loop of line 35. The letter was good, but Lake Oswego still does not really respect transit-dependent riders. Case in point is elimination, closure to taking out 2 stop signs and closing about 4 stops on line 78 on Country Club Road. This is a safety issue. This is why I'm here today, but also there's a lack of understanding of transit-dependent riders and their needs in the Highway 43 corridor, and this is problematic given the evolution of the Stafford IGA and about 10,000 plus units of housing out towards Meridian Park Hospital and I-205. We need at least transit-dependent riders, at least on line 35, have to have particular technical information and getting, I would say, a route atlas I'm trying to create, index of transit terms to show the politicians, elected officials, and whatnot. I also requested the TriMet board to set up a meeting between myself, TriMet technical staff, in regards to a multitude of issues at Highway 43 and Terwilliger Boulevard. Highway 43 in this segment is north of the flashing yellow light is referred to as Riverside Drive. South is State Street. There's a lot of projects going on there that are evolving. One of them is BES, Portland Bureau of Environmental Services, wants to take out 12,000 cubic yards of material out of Tryon Cove Park. How they're going to get it to Highway 43 and out, good luck. You have a railroad right-of-way there known as the Willamette Shoreline. And a trestle. So it doesn't look very complex, but it is exceedingly complex. Also, Lake Oswego wants to restart the Foothills project, development and densification, and they have no idea, frankly, how to get TriMet buses through Lake Oswego, especially the standard 40-foot buses through the midline loop to the transit center. In fact, I followed line 35 into the City Hall on Monday night. They need, right now, both lanes to make that short radius turn. It needs to be increased. The City of Lake Oswego owns a lot. They are not discussing that with transit-dependent riders such as myself. I was given about 3 minutes at a neighborhood chairs meeting in January. They're blowing me off. This needs to stop. It needs to be taken care of at Lake Oswego level, Portland State University for educating transit planners, engineers, and so on and so forth. And it needs to be done sooner rather than later. I would prefer STAT. Thank you.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate the information. I remember when you came prior. I believe we actually worked with you on some key issues there.
I appreciate the letter and ODOT. There's just I have an infographic. I have not had time in the last year. I'm still caring for my mother, age 104. She's now a youngster of age 104.3.
And she came with you last time, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
I'm sorry, my wings are clipped. Didn't quite get the lift application in time, but
Not a problem.
that was submitted last Friday and should be operational, I hope, in about another week. But there's just a lot of safety issues that are technical in nature. TriMet coordination at Highway 43 and Twilliger Boulevard, you have to have a theodolite.
Got it. Well,
yeah, it's
thank
crazy.
you. Greatly appreciate it. Mark?
I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to testify. My name is Mark Velke, and I live in the Goose Hollow neighborhood. And I'm here to talk about the proposed closure of the Kings Hill Salmon Street Max stop, which I'm opposed to. Probably, I think Cal mentioned it. I think it was in October. We had two TriMet people come and talk to our neighborhood association at our transportation committee meeting. And they were talking to us about the reasons for closing the Kings Hill Salmon Street Max station. Well, when they got there, I'm going to just talk about a few of them here because my limited time, but when they got there, they said, well, one of the reasons we want to close that Max station is because it's not a safe station. So I asked them, well, how many people have been killed at that station or maimed or injured since the station was open? And they couldn't think of any. They just basically, how'd the trout look? You know, they didn't know an answer to that question. And then also we were told by that group, or those two people, that the reason that they want to close them, in addition to 3 other stations through downtown, is because Intel and Nike want their employees to get to work 2 minutes earlier. Well, if you break it down, that means about 30 to 45 seconds per station. So if you leave the Goose Hollow Max station open, you know, it's going to cost you 30 to 45 seconds. I think that's a pretty cheap price to pay personally for a station that's important to the neighborhood. And then also, my last point I'd like to make is that I really don't think that TriMet and the city of Portland are on the same page or in the same book or in the same library, because the city is jamming housing into Goose Hollow. They're going to have thousands and thousands of more units of housing. They want us to look like the Pearl or the South Waterfront. And now is not the time to take away our Max station. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent insight. All right, we'd like to call up Stephen Solomon and Jason McKiff. It's been a while, Jason.
Yes. Now that you have professionals doing my old job.
Stephen.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stephen Salomon. I live on Park Place in Goose Hollow. A little background. I worked almost 30 years with the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, actually 39 years. And after the 3 Mile Island accident in Pennsylvania, I was detailed to the Federal Emergency Management Agency to create emergency planning zones around nuclear power plants. So I've dealt with world-class traffic planners, and our standards have been adopted by the International Atomic Energy Commission and used worldwide. I fully support Michael McGaffey, who's the president of the Goose Hollow Foothills League, letter to Thomas Markoff, the Director of Public Affairs at TriMet, which was dated October 18, 2018, regarding the opposition to proposed closure of the Southwest Hills Salmon Station. And I have a copy of the letter right here, which I'll give to the clerk right now. Some additional marks. I believe the current computer system that TriMet uses is outdated. A modern computer system should be demand-based. For example, if the train stops at Kings Hill Salmon, there should be no reason for it to stop if no one is scheduled to get off or get on. The same idea for the other stops under consideration to close. Otherwise, the train should stop. And now the Silicon Forest computer folks in this area should be able to design such a modern system for Portland and gift it to the city, since they are the primary benefits of the efficiencies that would be created. This way, Portland will continue to be on the cutting edge on public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jason.
Good morning, Director Stovall and Doug and members of the board. Just first, really quickly, I do support the closures of the MAX stations. We're really talking about 2 blocks here. I mean, literally, the end of the Kings Hill station's at Taylor Street, and then the next one's up at Yamhill. But really want to talk about too is the Powell Garage shuttles, which is resolution 18-12-80. And I've sent a written copy of this just to the board testimony email address. I didn't get that in last night, but it's there now, so hopefully you can get it sometime. But first of all, I want to say it's good to see this project. I know Powell Garage is really cramped for operators, for maintenance, and for bus parking. And I believe that employees now don't even have access to the showers if they want to bike in. However, I really question whether the proposed solution is really the best idea. First of all, Standard Parking, now SP Plus, is not a local company. They're based in Chicago, and TriMet would be having to pay their overhead expenses and profits, which is with TriMet now, for the things TriMet now does itself, like HR and administration. In addition, their employees are not going to be based at Powell, so they have to deadhead in, and which would take extra money. But also the alternatives I think there's a lot of alternatives. So number one would be having employees use the Green Line, which operates 15 minutes the majority of the time. And it should be just as fast since the shuttle bus can't use the freeway because you can't turn towards Powell. Number two would be incentivizing and organizing cart and van pools. I know many employees have to arrive or depart after the Green Line runs. You know, that would be the eggs that hatch the chickens, as I like to say. Number three would be looking into continuing use of the City 911 as well as the church lots, which are across the street and which TriMet is using now. Looking to continuing leases of those facilities. Number four would be the ODOT stockpile site, seeing if they can move their stockpile, which is right now literally right in front of the garage. There is like a pile of, I don't know if it's gravel and some chemical containers, which could easily be moved somewhere else. And that could be set up as a temporary parking lot. Number five would be seeing if the Kingpin's bowling alley on 92nd, if they have a large parking lot, seeing if they'd be willing to lease some spots, if they have extra spots. And number six, we're looking at using internal temporary employees to run the shuttle. Number one, this would be, these employees would not be handling the general public, so it'd be a much easier job. And also, it would be a lot shorter route, as well as you could probably just run a van. They would not have to drive a full-size bus. Next idea would be looking at using part-time employees, as in you've got some employees right now who just operate a run that only runs during the peak hour, during the rush hour. So basically combining that rush hour piece in the morning or afternoon with time on running the shuttle. And second to last idea would be using late night taxis. I would presume that there's going to be times at night when there's going to be basically no ridership for the shuttle. There's going to be no employees back and forth. Instead of having it go back and forth endlessly, I just have like on-demand either shuttle or taxi service or, TriMet van. And lastly, since I know you want to start this very soon, look in the interim is just using the TriMet extra board employees to operate the shuttle themselves. And very lastly, regarding the resolution 181285, the services for the Columbia Boulevard site, I'll look into, I don't know if TriMet has looked into leasing that out, even if there's a property management company out there that would be willing to find someone who wants to have some temporary, say, a vehicle or material storage, basically turning that liability into an asset and making some money off of it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you for the pointers, Jason. Greatly, greatly appreciate it.
And as I said, I did send the written document to the board testimony thing. I didn't get it by last night, but it's there now.
All right,
Hopefully
thank
you'll
you.
Get that.
All right. The next two, Jerry Powell and Leon Shavaria. Jerry?
Chairman Stilwell, Commission, Director. My name's Jerry Powell. I'm the co-chair of the Goose Hollow Planning Committee and a retired city planner. This, the action to close the Kings Hill Station, yeah, we're on Kings Hill Station again, doesn't really surprise me because it's been an underperforming station for, well, ever since it was organized. Yet time moves on. In the interim, the Multnomah Club has instituted a demand management program, largely at the insistence of the neighborhood and public policy conspiring to deny them additional parking. They're using that station now. The Lincoln High School is going to be built within the next 4 years, a new Lincoln High School. Its front door is within, what, 50 feet, 75 feet of the Kings Hill Station. There are approximately 600-700 dwelling units within a 700-foot radius of that station. If you exclude the radiuses available, the demand radius for the Goose Hollow Station and the Stadium Station, there are currently some 500 dwelling units that are approximate to that station. There are another 1,000 dwelling units that are within that corridor that are either just come online or will be online within the next 36 months. That's more people than a couple of subdivisions in the corridor that Max serves. What I'm giving you is a picture of demand for access to public transportation. You add that number of people to two existing stations on either side of the Kings Hill Station, and you have basically delayed boarding times. You can lose more time with a delayed boarding than you'd save by closing several stations in the downtown area. I need to point out that there's there's a significant lack of data supporting any part of this program that TriMet has basically put or is scheduled to put into practice. At best, there's anecdotal evidence that gee whiz, you really don't need that many stations in downtown. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much. Leon.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, I'm on the board for Committee on Accessible Transportation. I have epilepsy. I was just introducing myself to everyone else. Okay. Anyways, I was on the way to use the MAX November 21st for the CAT committee, and for the CAT meeting, and I was just wondering as I was hurrying towards the to the MAX train, I was wondering, I go like, does that person that's hurrying ahead of me, does he know which train that is? And then I was looking down towards the car, and I didn't see a a stripe, and I go like, wait a second, but there's a stripe on the side of the car. Is there a stripe on the top of the car? And then I saw an article on the paper yesterday. I didn't happen to read the article, but then I was wondering. I go like, that'll be very helpful for a lot of other people that are coming off a parking lot or a bridge, and I wonder how many people hurry down the stairs, but then they get down and they see the stripe and they go like, oh, that's the wrong train. My legs are so tired. I'm catching the wrong train. But I go like, well, if they see a stripe on the top of the car, then they go like, well, I don't have to hurry down the stairs so fast. And I think graphics or whoever does all the striping on the top of the car, that'll make a big difference, I think. And what'll also be a fun thing is to put splotches on the top of a car, on the top of the train cars, splotches on the top to show that this is a train that'll go over a bunch of bumps, or put some wavy lines on the cars to show that this is a route that goes a bunch. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but put a bunch of waves to show that this is a route that goes where the car kind of wobbles a little bit. I don't know if that explains it, makes it kind of silly odds, kind of humorous or something like that. Anyways, but when I get off the bus, I always thank my bus driver. But when I also get off the train, I also thank my Max driver. And the way I get off when I get off the Max on Yamhill, Morrison, I'm holding my thing up, my pass up, and I go like, thank you. Or even when it's a cloudy day, like yesterday when it was pouring rain, I looked up and I said to the bus driver, I go like, well, thank you. That was a sunny ride. And he smiles like anything. I go like, yeah, I said, it was a sunny ride. Well, thank you. Well, you have a nice day. And I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to say it at the CAT meeting, but right across the street from Providence Hospital on Gleason, at the shelter right across from the hospital at stop 2119 on Gleason, on the stop that goes up towards Gateway, there's no schedule on at the shelter. I think there should be I think there should be a schedule there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and testifying as we're working through some of these issues. Hopefully, we're able to connect on some of these key issues, especially the station closing. I mean, we're really at the forefront of that conversation, and we appreciate all of the input that we're getting as we continue to assess, how we're going to move forward on these stations. And so we greatly appreciate it, especially at the board level. We get to hear and understand kind of the things that folks are experiencing. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to come and join us here. So thank you so very much. At this time, we're going to close the public forum so that we can actually, again, get to the business meeting and then on to potentially the board briefing. So with that, we're now going to officially open the December business meeting of the TriMet Board of Directors. And we'll begin with our board reports. Our first board report this morning is from Director Baumann, but she is not here. She was supposed to be here. So Director Baumann is not here, and she was going to report on the CAT committee. And I don't believe we have anybody else who's prepared to speak to that. So we're going to move to the Finance and Audit. And I absolutely know the person who's doing the Finance and Audit Committee is here because that is I. So I get to chair that committee. We did meet this morning, and we covered three issues or items on the agenda. The very first item we covered was the strategic financial plan and ensuring that the budget is in alignment with the strategic financial plan, which we've developed a couple of years ago that kind of guides us as we move forward. And I believe we'll have a presentation at some point to the broader board in regards to how we're doing in regards to that. On the strategic financial plan, we've just briefly covered an item that we're going to be covering in regards to kind of some of the transfers of funds within our own budget. So that's going to be something we'll see. We just got a quick highlight of that. And then Doug actually brought us up to speed on an item in regards to some of the staff realignments that have occurred just recently. So that was the Finance and Audit Committee, what we went through this morning. Are there any questions from the board? I'm looking this direction because Director Simmons was in the committee meeting with me, so she's well aware.
No, thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you so very much. Let's move to the Transit Equity Committee, and that's going to be Director Gonzalez.
Thank you, Director Stovall. The TAC, or the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, met last night and had a series of report outs to share with the TAC committee entities, some of the latest happening around the low-income fare program, which is growing at a nice clip, happy to report, both in the number of active enrollees as well as in the number of partner sites. So that low-income fare program continues to grow steadily. We're hoping to make our mark by year's end, and we're tracking well towards the 10,000 target that we'd set. So aside from that, we had an opportunity to present to TIAC a little bit around the idea of how to get more feedback from the youth. Multnomah County Youth Commission was there, part of the reason we shifted our meetings into the evenings. And so they were able to share some ideas for how they can bring the voice of the youth into the TIAC conversation more deliberately. And so they're having conversations about whether that's the best forum or whether there's some other forum where that can take place. Aside from that, there were a few items that staff briefed the TIAC members about as regards focus areas and invited some participation. Some of this might be in the form of future workshops. We talked about Title VI, future service planning, construction committees, of course, safety and security, and ridership community engagement. But we also talked about language access plan and general system improvements. So some of this is going to create opportunities for further feedback to be gathered and to maybe help establish criteria coming from the TIAC committee. And one of the items coming in the next meeting will be to discuss the use or the distribution of the 1% grant funds that are part of the HB 2017. So we look forward to getting some feedback from TIAC on that.
Excellent. Are there any questions from any of the other board members? Seeing none, I do want to say that there are prime seats up here in the front, just in case anybody wants to join us up here. These seats usually go for high dollars. So if you want to join us up here, Roland, I mean, I see you back there. I mean, you can come right up front if you would like to enjoy a little more up close and personal. With that, we're actually going to move to the GM report. So Doug will take care of it at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, board members. Have probably 6 items to talk to you about today. The short one being the first is, as we literally meet today, just outside this door is a pilot double-decker bus. So should we take a break today, feel free to go out and kick the tires, so to speak, on it. It's a chance for us to introduce new ways to look at transportation and mobility. We haven't purchased one, but we've worked with a supplier and wanted to bring it up here to the Portland region to kind of let people soak in what's possible. So please, it'll be here. We're going to put it in service today to help out for one of the West service disruptions. So it's only going to be here for about an hour plus. So if people want to have a look, it should be just outside the door now. But go on the bus, sit on it, experience the ride, because it's been used in other marketplaces. And I think it's something that should be quite of interest to Portland in the future. But don't just think about this as a diesel double-decker bus. I really believe there's an opportunity here for an electrified double-decker bus in this marketplace. So our team's going to be doing some work on and listening to our customers. We'll be doing a customer survey today as part of the West trips today, and to see how people think about it. So please enjoy. In terms of the reports today, I'm going to cover off the November ridership report as a standard item. We're going to get a quick update on Hot Pass. I'm going to bring up our new executive director, Marla Blagg, and Harry Saporta, to talk about the operator assaults. And I want to introduce two of our new executive members, one I just mentioned, and also we'll bring up Maurice, our Chief Operating Officer, to talk about the our quarterly performance reports results. So firstly, ridership. So for a number of months, we've had some softening of ridership, small by comparison to many other transit agencies, as the directors have noted. But this month, we have some number of positive indicators on the ridership side. So this month, we provided 7.8 million trips in November. The weekly system-wide ridership was actually up 1.1% than November of the prior year. Weekend ridership saw a notable increase of over 4% increase in ridership. We think some of that is attributed to, when you kind of peel out the numbers, some of the Timbers extra games, Blazer games and such, so go Timbers, but what a fun problem to have. But that all contributes to the usage of the system, which is great. We provided more than 1 million weekly trips on the bus system. That was up 0.4% year to year. So I think we're starting to see also some of the roll-on effect of or some of the employer payroll tax service expansions that we are at the very, very early stages of. So I'm optimistic there'll be more good news like this to be coming. Weekend bus ridership was actually up over 2.5%, so that's good as well. And the MAX saw an increase of 2%, with weekend ridership up 6.5%. So we're looking pretty good. I think the frequent service lines were also positive, 608,000 weekly trips there. Now that accounts for about 56% of all the bus trips. So that's an important one for us to keep a look on. And as we try and speed the system up to be more around what global cities do, around the speed of rapid transit throughout a region, the frequent transit network for bus becomes really a key instrument for us going forward. West continues to be a challenge. That'll be the last point I'll make. It's down 12.5% comparing year over year. So this is a challenged area for us. We will see a disruption next month because of the signaling system results that we talked about today earlier. In terms of HOP update, I'd like to maybe call up Ryan Schaub if she will give us a short update on this. As the board knows, this is a significant investment by the organization. We're going from paper to paperless, and Ryan has been just a great leader for us on this and other fronts to come in the future. So Ryan, over to you.
Hi, good morning. So I'll begin with some great news. As of October, 25% of all HOP rides of all TriMet rides are now paid for with HOP. So that is one of many milestones I'll be sharing with you this morning, but I liked that as a headliner. And that adoption rate will continue to increase as we enter the new year. Adoption is driven primarily by the elimination of the paper fares at our retail stores and the conversion of our ticket vending machines to selling HOP tickets. In October, we saw almost 68,000 unique HOP cards in the system, 81% of which are registered. That's another great number to share. That's a significant percentage of our riders that are choosing to share their information with us, and I think it's a marker of trust in our HOP system. In addition, there were nearly 14,000 HOP tickets tapped. And I'll remind you guys, the difference between a HOP ticket and a HOP card is that a HOP card is reloadable, and a HOP ticket is meant for single use, short-term use. We've also collected $25 million in sales to date, $2.7 million of which occurred in the month of October. And our call center remains quiet, which is great news. Mm-hmm. The institutional rollout continues. And one more milestone is that we now have reached 500 retail locations. That's up from 150 in a pre-HOP world. So we're really increasing our accessibility there. Since removing paper fares from those retail locations, those retail sales are up almost 60%. So again, another marker of increased adoption. Folks are going to those locations and reloading their HOP cards. Switching gears slightly, in the first 4 months of the low-income fare program, we issued 5,500 HOP cards to honored citizen folks that are now newly eligible through that low-income fare program. And that number will continue to grow due to the excellent efforts of John Gardner's team and the folks down at the TriMet ticket office, so kudos there. And we also launched the beta for our Lyft paratransit service for HOP. and that's been going on since October. We've received very positive feedback, so positive, in fact, that we're going to expand the beta testing group to include more folks and do sort of a phase 2 of that beta testing over the next couple of months. So that is a summary of what we've been up to for the last quarter. I'd like to point us now towards what is ahead. There's 2 specific initiatives I'd like to bring to your attention. First has to do with the TriMet Tickets app, and that is the legacy mobile ticketing app that we launched in 2013, where you can purchase a ticket on your phone, launch that ticket, and show that to the operator as you're boarding, if you're boarding a bus. TriMet plans to actually begin sunsetting that app in 2019. We'll continue to discuss this with you and do a lot of outreach to the public, but customers will still be able to use those tickets for some time. And HOP, the bottom line is the better, equitable alternative. HOP lets riders earn that day or month pass as they go. If they were to purchase a 7, 14, or 30-day pass, there's a chance they might not use it for that entire 7, 14, or 30-day period. With HOP, you buy your value, add it as stored value, and every tap counts towards your day or monthly cap. So it's a better deal for our customer. HOP also provides lost card protection. Similar to a credit card, if you lose it, you can call us, we will put a hold on it, and you can transfer that balance. Additionally, we sell several other HOP mobile alternatives for riders. So yes, we are planning to get rid of our TriMet Tickets app, but folks can use HOP via the Android virtual card or through what we call open payments or the use of a mobile wallet. Android has Google Pay, and for Apple users, there's Apple Pay. So all you have to do is tap and go, and you are on our system. Lastly, to the point of our mobile devices, we're working on some other digital enhancements that are coming in 2019 to help with that mobile digital experience, but we'll be able to share more on those features soon. Now, the second initiative is related, and it has to do with a change to our fare code. So once the conversion of our TVMs is complete, and all our TVMs are selling HOP limited use media, and the app has been phased out, TriMet will no longer offer 7, 14, or 30-day passes. And this means we'll need to bring a change to TriMet's fare code to the board. Our plan is to bring a resolution to the Finance and Audit Committee in January for initial consideration. And again, we'll be focusing a lot of our customer education and outreach efforts on getting that concept well known in the community. In addition to these initiatives, in the next few months, we'll continue to pursue the remaining HOP conversion projects, such as institutional rollout and lift that I mentioned earlier. So in the remainder of the handout that you guys have today, you'll see a series of charts and graphs with more detailed stats on the HOP program. A couple of headliners that I'll point out for you now. October was a record-breaking month for HOP taps, counting over 2 million. Additionally, if you choose to dig deeper in the docs, you can see which sales channels are the most popular, how HOP taps break out amongst card types and amongst our partner agencies. Quick spoiler alert, our website is our most popular sales channel, with almost 50% of our HOP loads coming through the website, split between institution and customer. So please peruse deeper. Feel free to reach out with more questions should you have them. And that's the end of my update.
Thank you, Ryan. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions any of the board members have on this significant transformation.
So just quickly, I mean, we highlighted really good stuff. I mean, it's encouraging to see the adoption. It's encouraging to see everything that we're doing to really be a great resource in this community as far as transportation goes. In the implementation, I mean, based on what you said in regards to the kind of customer service center, you know, the phones are quiet. That's always good to hear. Are there areas that we see some challenges since we've done the implementation? Is everything just going so swimmingly that it's, I mean, it really is just something that's been pretty quiet, or are there some areas of challenges that we should be aware of?
It has been very quiet, which is the good news. I would say the challenges that we have encountered are not unexpected, but they are a very small percentage of the population. Things that are more questions about privacy, for example, and as we've shared with the board in past updates, our system is designed to help protect the rider's identity and information. So we've been able to answer those concerns that are brought to us.
Excellent.
I might just add to this, I can say this having worked and implemented other markets. This is amazing. and sometimes you don't know until you look at context.
Mm-hmm.
Smart card implementations around the world are fraught with pain to get to the other side. Complex software programs, no matter what they are. But this implementation overall has been a real credit to Dee and Tony Swanson and Ryan and those who've gone before. So far, it's really been as seamless as one could actually hope for. When you look at, I look at Chicago's, I look at Vancouver, BC, I look at some of New York's transitions, and it really is quite well done. So just as a real credit to the team.
Thank you, Doug.
Somewhat unique, frankly, in the smoothness of it.
Yeah, excellent job. And since, Ryan, you're the one here, you get to take all the credit.
It's my honor.
Okay.
Director Simmons.
I just have a question. Obviously, that there's a real benefit to the rider for this. Could you cite some of the benefits for the agency in terms of the HOP card?
Certainly. So when we were preparing to move to the HOP program, we did a lot of research into what would be the most efficient fare collection system in the future. And the benefit of the HOP system is that there aren't a lot of moving parts that require preventative maintenance. It's 99% software, solid state equipment. So as we continue this transition, TVMs are a great example, making them more simple both for the customer and from a maintenance perspective. It's also allowing us to streamline our fare instruments, and the phase out of the mobile ticketing app, the TriMet Tickets app, is a great example of that. So today we're running two fare systems, right? We've got HOP, well, many, but we've got HOP, and then we've got this TriMet Tickets app. And once we transition that over, it's transitioning to a much more efficient means of fare collection from a cost perspective.
I think other ones, not just cost, I would add here, is there's tremendous benefits for the power of managing large data, not individual data, but aggregate data. This becomes, for me, a strategic platform to not just be a fare collection system, but a way to communicate with our customers, to provide new products and services that on paper could otherwise not be handled. So I think there's a very large strategic side here for the company, but other benefits for the customer as well that are known. So
Thank you.
Thanks again, Ryan. Thank you. Next item I'd like to cover off today, and I'd like to call up Harry Supporta, if I could, and Marla Blagg. And they'll give us a quick update on the assault preventions initiatives underway for us. But just before I do this, I'd like to formally introduce Marla Blagg as our Harry sunsets to a well-deserved retirement in the months ahead. And Marla has arrived for us, the new Harry. I call them Harla, until a full transition occurs. Marla comes from us with great experience from BART in San Francisco. So we're just delighted to have her here. She's a great contributor already, and she's got a lot of perspectives that's going to help this agency confirm that all the great things we do, but also push us in ways maybe we haven't contemplated before. So Marla, welcome. And I don't know if there's any comments you want to make before we kick into the operator.
No, but thank you very much. I'm really happy and honored and privileged to be here, and I just want to let you know safety and security is a top priority of mine. It always has been, and I'm looking forward to working with the board on moving that needle forward.
Thanks, Marla.
Thank you.
I'll just turn it right over to the two of you.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Stovall and board members. In front of you, I believe you do have the Transit Police report on the number of assaults and robberies that have occurred over the last 3 years. I do want to note that for 2018, it is only a partial year. It ends in November. So we still have the month of December to go through. But when you compare 2017 to that of 2018, even though it is only 11 months, there's still a reduction in the number of assaults against operators, which I think is very significant. You'll also note in this report that there is other security personnel, but they're non-TriMet personnel, and that's G4S, and there is a significant increase. That is largely attributed to the number of G4S officers that are currently out on the system. It's still a low number, but it's still there. There was also a significant decrease with rail operators. I believe the significance of that is principally because, yes, the operators are in a cab and they're away from the passengers, but there are times when they have to interact with passengers, and that's when someone is sleeping at the end of a line and they attempt to wake the individual. We made some changes in that respect. Now at some of the ends of the line, we do have G4S officers there that awaken the sleeping passengers, then having the rail operator do that. At the bottom of the page, you'll also see that there's a chart that describes the various scenarios for which maybe these occurrences have occurred. And that is we have moved away from fare enforcing for the bus operators, and that of fare informing. And there's still a little bit of an issue with that, but the principal problem seems to be centered around when the operator attempts to address a particular problem on board the bus. And so we're still continuing to try to address this particular issue and give the operators more tools to address it. Okay. On the next page is a heat map which shows the geographical area in which this seems to be occurring, and not too surprising, it's principally in the downtown core and also the Lloyd Center area, and that's because that's where we have quite a bit of service, and so it's not surprising in that respect. So for some of you who have not have been on the board long enough to hear previous presentations, I did want to take the opportunity to provide just a very brief overview of what we're doing to address these issues. One, in 2016, we formed a security continuous improvement team, and this is comprised of bus and rail operators, our field supervisors, trainers, ATU representatives, transit police, the district attorney that is assigned to TriMet, transportation managers, and legal and security staff. It was through this group that we identified a program to provide assault prevention awareness training. This has been provided to bus and rail operators and supervisors, and we continue to do this on an annual basis as well. More recently, we are going to be hiring a firm that will help us bring this awareness training to a new level. The other significant work of this group has been to also look at the current fare collection procedures. How do they do this? And we made some changes in that, and this is where we've moved from that fare enforcing to the fare informing model. And then the group also looked at and studied the protective panels, and I will, on the agenda today, you will have an opportunity to approve a contract with a vendor that will enable us to expand the use of these panels from the current 6 to hopefully the entire fleet. I also want to note that there were 2 events, one which occurred on December 2nd, in which an individual attempted to assault an operator by swinging and attempting to strike him. Fortunately, this bus was equipped with a panel, and the attempt was around the barrier itself. The individual was never able to reach the operator, so he was never struck. That's the purpose of these panels, is to avoid that. And in another circumstance, someone attempted to spit on an operator, and the panel obviously deflected that, the sputum, and the operator was protected. I believe you do have this. It's a photograph of what the panel looks like. The one on the right shows a panel with extended glass, and that was one that the operators selected, as opposed to the one on the left, in which it's the same basic design, except the panel does not fully extend nearly as much as the one on the right. And that is what you'll be voting on as well later today. Other activities that are in progress is we continue to look at public outreach and education programs. We are enhancing the CCTV system. This is really for evidentiary purposes, so that if someone does attempt to harm the operator, we have evidence and we can apprehend them. And now we're really focusing on, we know that we won't be able to prevent every single incident. However, we want to support the operator to the extent possible by providing counseling and an advocate support system. And we're still pursuing changes to the Oregon statute where it makes assaulting a transit worker a felony. And that legislation failed a year and a half ago, but we're going to pursue it again. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you for the report.
Okay. Yes,
and
thank
welcome.
you. Welcome, Marla.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call up to give our quarterly report Maurice Henderson. And just as Maurice is coming up to get settled, I still have to call up Kim Sewell as well. So just as I mentioned earlier, introduced Marla Blagg to you as one of the new members of our executive team. So if we go back a number of months ago, we're really fortunate and doing a great job. Roland Hoskins has come in from maintenance. Maurice Henderson has joined us as the Chief Operating Officer. Marla Blagg has recently joined us, and Kim Sewell is our brand new internal person, an Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, replacing Randy Stedman. All very important roles, but you can see lots of changes on the leadership team here over the last 8 months. Kim, we're just delighted that she's in place. She's been in Shelley's department in the legal team and been just a great performer for many, many years. And I want to introduce you today to her. And was any comments, Kim, you wanted to make? Or
just like Marla said, I'm very happy, privileged, and honored to be a part of this team, and I'm excited for all the opportunities I have.
So, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
So, over to Maurice, our quarterly report with Maurice.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning, Vice President Stovall and members of the board. Per Doug's comments, I'll be providing the quarterly report. As you know, we focus on 3 primary areas for improvement: vehicle and system reliability, service delivery, and operator support. Not moving. Oh, sorry. Okay. First, preventive maintenance completed on time. Preventive maintenance actually exceeded the FTA preventive maintenance target, which is 80%. So we were at 92% this past quarter. In terms of individual breakdowns in rail equipment maintenance, we were up about 16% at 97.6%. Bus maintenance declined slightly, 5.3 percentage points to 92.5%. Maintenance of way saw a small year-over-year improvement of 93.3%, while our fare equipment continued at 100% mark, so on time. In terms of our mean distance between failure and light rail, had a slight decrease of 4.9% over the past year comparatively. Fixed bus, in terms of mean distance between failure, there was a decrease of 4.4% over the previous year to 13,509 miles. In terms of maintenance attendance, which is, I think speaks to some of the challenges we've had, we were actually up slightly at 0.6% to a 93.7% increase. As you know, we've had challenges both with the hiring of folks in the maintenance shop. We're still down in several positions, and we've had some issues with some of our equipment, just making sure that it stays in a state of good repair. But the team's working really hard, and we're really proud of the numbers that we've seen in terms of our ability to meet some of these performance goals. In terms of service delivery, in terms of the products and services we're putting out to our customers, as you can see here, In terms of our on-time performance, we were slightly improved on bus, 86.3% overall over the quarter. That's a 1.9% increase from the last time I met with you. In terms of max service, we also saw an increase of 2.2 percentage points at 88.5% for this quarter. So again, the team is working extremely hard on focusing on this. As you know, this has been a focus area of Doug's and his time as the COO, and certainly now as the GM. And Patrick and Roland, both in the transportation operations and maintenance side, have made sure that their teams are hyper-focused on this area. As Doug mentioned previously regarding WES, we've seen a slight decrease in our on-time performance. So right now we're looking at a 92.7% on-time performance rate for this quarter. Some of that is due to some of the rail construction projects and some speed restrictions. I want to take a moment to thank all those who've been involved in getting the double-decker bus involved for the bus bridge today. The company, the ATU, folks worked lightning fast to come up with a solution to highlight a potential new service for our customers. We're looking forward to seeing what the response is from folks who will be riding the bus over the next day or so. Let's see, in terms of transportation employees, attendance had an increase to 90%. So always like to hear positive news about people making sure that they can get to work. In terms of boardings, overall we saw a slight decline, a 2.2% decline over the course of the quarter. This is not new news. We're certainly continuing our efforts to outreach to customers and make sure that we have products and services that are meeting their needs. In terms of fixed route bus, we were down about 2.3% from this time last year, but it should be noted that we've also added new services and that weekly boardings are increasing, so we hope to see those numbers bear out over the next quarter or so. In terms of max boarding, we were slightly down about 1.4%, and in terms of WES, we were down 4.9%, consistent with what we were talking about previously. Let's see, collisions. In terms of operator support, let's talk about first bus collisions. As we talked about during the second quarterly report, we're seeing an uptick in the number of mirror strikes. So in terms of total bus collisions, we were up about 16.5%. The majority of that was driven by a 31.5% increase in the mirror strikes. Certainly something that we're still working through. Certainly our training group, our field supervisors and operators are very cognizant of this, and we're trying to bring that number down as quickly as possible. Total number of max collisions remained about comparable to last year. We had an increase of 1, but a decline by 4 from the prior quarter. The overall number of max collisions is small in comparison. In terms of bike and pedestrian incidents, had an increase from 3 to 4 collisions, and in terms of the other column, there was an increase from 2 to 4. Okay. In terms of complaints, per 100,000 boarding rides, we were down about almost 16.5% from the past year, but up slightly compared to last quarter. Per 100,000 boarding rides this quarter, we saw 4 fewer service delivery complaints and a 0.8 increase on the number of public relations complaints, and a 0.2% increase on the safety-related complaints as well from the prior year. I think the thing that should be highlighted there is the work that G4S and our safety and security team have been doing in terms of making sure that people feel secure on the system. I think that's still reflected by the ridership numbers. In terms of max complaints, we were down about 50% from the prior year. In terms of those complaints, this quarter we saw 2.4% fewer service complaints, and we saw about the same for public relations complaints, and then a 0.2% increase in safety-related complaints. In terms of commendations, per 100,000, again, we were down from the prior year, but increased slightly from the previous quarter. Always happy to hear from our customers and stakeholders. Max commendations per million rides are up compared to last year, compared to the past quarter. And then, let's see, rules violations. This is something that we are also hyper-focused on, both in our training and in our daily operational environment. We had an increase of about 48.9%, excuse me, from last year. What should be noted there is that the prior quarter three in 2017 was the lowest we'd seen in 3 years. Part of the challenge here is that the team has done an incredible job of working on sort of the straightforward fixes, like permanent speed signs, for example. But some of the harder things to deal with now are the signal trips. We've got a lot of new operators who are new to the environment, and so we're constantly in a learning mode and a constant continuous improvement efforts. New to the board today, we've been able to pull stats from our LIFT program, which I know is of great interest to the board members. So first up is our on-time performance there. We are, in terms of preventive maintenance, we're at 100% in compliance for quarter three. In terms of miles between road calls, it actually declined 4.7. I can get you the previous quarter's numbers if you're interested. From the prior year, there's 45,626. In terms of service delivery, in terms of our on-time performance, an increase slightly from the prior year to 91.7%, while LIFT appointments on-time performance remains steady at 91.8%. Our taxi cab partnership pickups declined slightly to 90%. Ridership in terms of revenue was increased slightly to 1.9%. In terms of preventable collisions, we were down, thankfully, 15.4%. That was from 13 to 11 from the prior year. In terms of complaints, per 100,000 rides, we declined by 8.3%. Again, I think this is a testament to the work that the team is doing, both on the operations side and also our operators. So we are very much appreciative of their work and the partnerships with our taxi cab partners. Commendations declined by 28%, while commendations increased for LIFT dispatch, they declined for LIFT transportation and cabs. And lastly, the percentage of call center calls that were answered within 5 minutes remains high, from a low of 97% for reservations to a high of 98.8% for customer service, with dispatch calls falling between 98.5%. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have on any of the information.
All right, are there any questions? Director Edwards.
Yes, thank you for the report. I just had a question regarding the collisions, and that was when you talked about the...
On Max or bus?
No, I'm sorry. We need to go back further. The fixed bus route.
Okay.
And we're talking about the mirror collisions in particular. I don't know if you have
Yes.
a breakdown on that. What is the cost to TriMet as a result of that?
Okay.
And do we have a breakdown on, are those automobiles or those SUVs? What kind of vehicles are those that the collisions are occurring with?
Okay. I don't know that information, Director Edwards, but I'll be glad to get it to you.
Thank you.
Maybe I just jump on this one. So you'll see a significant portion of them. There's sort of several key categories. Firstly is tree branches for some of the types of collisions for mirror strikes. Yes, it's parked cars, turning corners sometimes too tight, and lamp poles, things of that nature. And I think, as Maurice actually commented on, also some of the newness of the operators as well. So we've even had examples where the scooters have actually run into the back of parked buses. So, so surprising that may be. So there's a list of from the strange to the known and as well. So, but we'll get that data for you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for the presentation and welcome, Kim.
Thank you. That would conclude my report this morning.
All right. Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
yes.
like to remove from the consent agenda Resolution 181277.
Okay.
I had some questions regarding that discussion.
Okay.
All right. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and make this comment. Again, we're going to lose Director Gonzalez at about 11:45. So basically, we've got to get through both consent agenda and the resolutions before that time because we actually have to have him here for our quorum. And so we're going to go ahead and push ahead. I know we've got the double-decker bus outside. I think still, for those of you who want to depart to go take a look at it, please don't hesitate to go do that. But as a board, we actually have to make sure we get through the business agenda as designed. So I was hoping I could get to go drive it, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I do have a CDL with the passenger endorsement. Boom! Mic dropped. Wow!
Doesn't mean there's
Look
still
at
not
that.
there's still risk here, even with the CDL.
All right. With that, we've had one request to remove the resolution 18-12-77 from the consent agenda. Are there any other items that we would like to get removed from the consent agenda? And just for those folks in the audience, items appearing on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved by the board in one blanket motion. This morning, the consent agenda includes meeting minutes of our last meeting. The item directing all ordinances be read by title only. A resolution authorizing a lease with Harrison Square LLC, and a resolution authorizing the submission of 8 grant applications to the FTA at this point in time because Resolution 18-12-77 has been requested to be removed. Is there anything else like the board that would like to see removed and discussed at this point? All right, with that, is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, to move on to Resolution 18-12-77. Since we pulled this from the consent agenda, is there any insight or input that the general manager would like to give on this before the board has a discussion?
I may call up Harry Supportas here for this one, and Kim, if there's anything on the drug and alcohol policy that they may want to comment on. If not, we'll just open it up for comments or questions from the board members. So may just open it up if Director Edwards, I think, had asked to pull to if there's any questions you may have.
I guess my first question would be, does this dovetail, does our drug and alcohol policy dovetail with DOT? And especially in the area of discipline, that was my main concern. The reason I brought that concern is simply because you know, folks in America in particular, but throughout the world, do have issues with substance abuse and drug and alcohol abuse. And with that, I get concerned sometimes about folks that maybe have some shame and other issues around drug and alcohol abuse that keep them from perhaps getting the help that they need prior to reaching the point of discipline. But when we get to discipline, we're talking about a person that maybe has a drug or alcohol or substance abuse issue or problem, and now that moves to an employment and essentially an economic and financial problem and hardship with that individual as well. TriMet is a public agency. The public still has to deal with that particular individual, regardless of whether they're employed with TriMet or if they're out in the world with that drug and alcohol problem. So I just wanted to state that and just, like I say, find out if this dovetails with DOT and are we required in regards to our discipline, or are there other means to make sure that we do everything we can to rehab individuals. I mean, nobody's going to, if we took a survey, nobody's going to raise their hand and say they want to lose 5 days of employment, 2% of their wages for the year. We're not going to, you're going to get the same result if you do a survey and ask how many people want to lose their jobs through drug or substance abuse. And so that's the reason I bring the issue. I know it's safety is a huge concern. It's a huge concern for our public, as well as a concern for the individual and their families. And so I just wanted to make sure that we're all this is being considered in regards to this, the discipline that we mete out in regards to our substance abuse policy.
Well, I will just speak to some of the things you mentioned with respect to employee services. And I know that, and I don't have the information with me now, but I know that we have employee assistance programs and our accommodations that we provide with respect to some of the needs that employees may have related to substance abuse. This particular amendment, and I think Harry can speak more to this, is related to the increased rate of testing that was mandated. And so that, I believe, is the only revision we're doing to this policy. The other issues you mentioned, I think, are equally as important, but I can certainly address them in a different way and provide you different information about those opportunities for employees.
And I would like to add that if an employee does come forward and says, I have a substance abuse problem, there is no consequence. And we afford them the counseling and the services that they need to address the particular issue. TriMet also has a second chance agreement. That is not a requirement. That is an option that TriMet has elected. Many other transit agencies don't. It's one strike and you're out. We've elected not to do that. We understand that our workers are a valuable resource and we need to provide them with every opportunity possible. But it is only a one other opportunity, and then there are more severe consequences.
Okay. So because when I looked at this, I figured that the language that was in bold print was changes to the document. Is that incorrect? Okay.
The language, sorry.
Well, yeah, it's just there was a required rate increase based on some of the statistical data that I think the FTA was tracking. And so and Harry may know more of the specifics of that, but the amount of testing we do is mandated to be increased. And so it's just to track that mandate.
Yes. So the DOT says that if the increase is more than 1% nationally, everyone's rate goes up. And so we are going from 25% to 50%.
That, I believe, is the only change that is being proposed in this resolution.
And what is the cost associated with that?
That I don't know. Obviously, there are several factors to that. One is we have to remove the employee from their position to do the testing. Testing that needs to be done throughout the work shift. The other increase would be the cost of the collection site. The third cost is still the lab testing itself. And then there's a medical review officer that reviews the test itself to assure that it's valid. And that may include a discussion with the individual that was tested if they suspect there may be some abuse. And if the individual does test positive, then That means that there's a counseling session. So there are a number of factors and costs that go into this. But I need to emphasize that all of these things are mandated. It's not an option.
So if I'm understanding this clearly, the federal mandate has essentially doubled the rate. Does this come, Director Edwards has mentioned there's fiscal impacts to this. Is this absorbed in our general fund? How does that impact our operating costs to meet this mandate?
There is a budget line item for drug testing, for the drug testing program. Obviously, that will have to be absorbed this fiscal year. We will be making an adjustment to the budget for the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
All of this goes into effect January 1st.
We will have to absorb this in our business budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Hopefully we've got all of our questions answered and we're ready to actually look at potentially taking action on this resolution. Is there a motion to approve for Resolution 18-12-77?
So moved. Thank you, FTA.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor to approve Resolution 18-12-77, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, for a second resolution this morning, authorizing amendment of an agreement with Prosper Portland for construction and purchase of property for the transit police facility. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you very much. So as most of you are aware, TriMet is purchasing the portion of a parking garage at the new Convention Center Hotel at a cost of $9 million. You may recall there were some murmurs about the facility when the board approved it in December of 2016, where some were claiming it was a jail. The truth is the precinct is simply the replacement of the old facility in Old Town that currently houses roughly half of the officers that are contracted to perform the services as transit police. We lease that space from the city of Portland and the rent is going up. And even though TriMet continued to grow and expand to serve the region, there's still no room for expansion of the Old Town precinct where it previously is located. The new facility, it's pretty centrally located, as you are aware, meets our parking requirements, is located near transit, and also for ease of deployment on the system. Like any police station, it will have a temporary holding cells, but no overnight lockup facilities, and I think that is important. It's not a jail, rather it's a new, larger, and more accommodating space for transit police officers, and there's even a space in there for community use at some point as well. In the constructing the facility, TriMet will acquire the shell space from the city, then we will hire our own contractor to suit the space to our needs. As we've advanced this project, we've identified some components that can be built more effectively and less expensively if it's done as part of the shell work. In other words, the work will be performed by Prosper Portland's own contractor, Mortensen. The resolution would increase our agreement by $180,000 to pay for two specific items here. The first, the installation of hangers and embeds necessary for connecting the mechanical equipment, the interior walls and the stairs to this building shell. And secondly, the TriMet's portion of the cost for unexpected soil remediation not anticipated that's necessary for this work. The contractor, Mortensen, who I mentioned, will be required to comply with Prosper Portland's equity policy themselves. And that they do in fact have their own designed program to increase participation by DBE and minority-owned, women-owned, and emergency small businesses, as well as increase employment and apprenticeship opportunities by women and communities of color. The cost is in our fiscal 19 budget, and your approval of this resolution is recommended. And maybe let's call on Steve Witter if he is here to come up as well if there's any questions you have on the technical side of it.
All right, excellent, thank you. Are there any questions for the General Manager or Steve and staff?
Kate McKinnon, Project Manager.
Hello, Kate.
It was my understanding that the total project for the police facility was $11 million. So this is just a portion of what it's going to cost to actually complete the project. We'll assume responsibility for finishing the interior space. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, looks like we're ready to take a look at a motion. So are folks ready to provide a motion for approval for resolution 18-12-79?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, excellent. We've motioned and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, excellent. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So maybe just keep Steve up here as well. So the next item up is 18-1280. Did you want me to move to that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, move on to.
This resolution is for contract with SP Plus Corporation, as you heard from one of the public testimonies earlier, to provide shuttle services for TriMet employees who work out of Powell Garage. This is an extensive, large change for us, rebuilding of this garage. It will be completely renovated over the next 2 to 3 years. During the renovation, there's not on-site parking for employees. It is very tight in that geographic area. Instead, they will park at TriMet Southeast Park, main park and ride lot, which is approximately 1 3/4 miles away. And we intend to provide shuttle service 24 hours a day, because remember, we are a 24-hour service. In fact, some of the time, the bus is not even running throughout the night. So this will be a 24-hour service on a continuous loop, anticipating 15-minute intervals. And once we get into the process, what is before you today of the service, we'll evaluate this probably about every 3-4 months for any adjustments that are needed. Before deciding to pursue this contract, TriMet engaged with the ATU, their transportation leadership, our schedulers, and others to try and find a way to provide its own shuttle service. At the end of the day, we simply do not have the capacity, given our staffing levels. And in fact, in some cases, we're having times when buses are having trouble meeting service, let alone providing this service. So we really do not want to allocate our limited resources for basic service to supplemental temporary services such as this. We found, looking at our service needs and the buses able to provide it, it was just not a sustainable model to do it internally. We also checked with Lyft, which had one bus but no operator available. We issued also a competitive request for proposal to select the contractor. 3 bids were received, and SP Plus that you have in front of you today emerged as the highest ranked proposer. The workforce for SP Plus is 28% women and 40% minorities. The term of the contract is 1 year, with our option to extend for up to 4 additional 1-year periods. In all, if all the options are exercised over that period of time, the contract maximum would be $2.765 million. They are included on our fiscal 18 and 19 capital budget, and your approval is recommended.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Are there questions for the general manager from the board?
I just had a brief question. The diversity, the 28% women and 47% minorities, are the women included as the minorities, or are they just counted once?
I don't know that answer.
I don't know for sure, Director Edwards. My guess is they get counted twice. So if it's a female and a minority, you're going to get a check in each one of those boxes. I can verify that information.
Okay, because I think we need to count differently going forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Simmons?
A comment was made that this company is Chicago-based and that we would be incurring costs by contracting with them for bringing employees into the area. Is that really what's going to happen, or do they have the ability to hire within the region?
Director Simmons, I would have to have Kate McKinnon, the project manager for this project. Okay. Kate has been instrumental in sort of working with the ATU and TriMet operations, as the general manager has indicated, and Kate could probably answer that question better than I could.
So they have a local office here working with the regional manager, and they
they provide service to OHSU and the port and also Seattle, so.
Thank you.
And it was referenced in regards to, we looked at this internally and all of those things, and as I do just a quick back of the envelope calculation, I mean, this is 24/7, 365 days a year. At a full 5-year, $2.7 million is the full 5-year value of the contract.
765. Yeah.
That basically breaks down to about $540,000 a year. That seems pretty reasonable, actually, somewhat a little too reasonable, to consider 24/7 at $540 a year to provide that level of shuttle service, including, I mean, they're providing their own vehicles?
Correct.
And their own teams?
Correct. Essentially, the service hour is about $65, which is actually less than our service hour.
And that's inclusive of
That's
all?
inclusive of the vehicles.
Wow.
Had we run the shuttle service ourselves, as general manager indicated, there was one lift vehicle available. It would probably require multiple vehicles, and therefore the project would have incurred costs for leasing or, excuse me, purchasing vehicles on top of our other costs.
And is this already included in the project cost?
It's in the project budget, yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. All right, are there any questions in regards to Director Simmons?
I don't see anything in the resolution that talks that the amount is for more than 1 year.
Where it says TriMet may extend for additional 1 years?
So it's right below the.
Not to exceed if all options are exercised.
But the actual resolution
in the
doesn't
resolution itself.
state that, no. And so, it would be easy to conclude that this is a 1-year contract. And is it possible to amend the resolution to just include the term up to a certain date?
We could do whichever you desire. We could do is 1 year with up to 4-year renewal options, as I commented on, totally no more than.
Right.
I
would
might suggest that type of wording.
I would prefer that the actual resolution mirror.
Dr. Simmons, I believe that would also be contained in the contract that we sign.
Yeah.
But they would want to, I think.
Just in terms of board record.
Sure, I have to defer to council.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Yes.
how would we?
Go ahead and do a motion to amend, and then vote on the motion to amend. And
Okay.
then you would vote on the amended motion. So 2 votes.
And would we have to have the exact wording identified at this point, or the general wording that?
The general wording is
Okay,
sufficient.
excellent.
We can change it.
Perfect. Okay, so we will have a quick motion to amend if everybody's comfortable with moving forward, but I would just want to find out if everybody's comfortable. Any more additional questions?
Yeah, I had a simple clarification question, just for context here. Is it typical for the response rate for proposals at this level to have the type of response we had? I see that we had 55 vendors notified, 20 vendors viewed the solicitation, and we had 3 respondents. Is that about the rate at which we're seeing typically in today's market?
Director Gonzalez, I would say our experience in construction contracts has been similar to that. I've not been in my 17 years at TriMet, I've not been involved in procuring shuttle services of this type, but it's not uncommon that folks begin to self-select, and a whole bunch of folks would start to view these solicitations and then self-select. So this is not an unusual pattern, in my opinion.
Thank you. And the other 2 respondents that submitted proposals, do they also have a national or regional footprint, or are they very much based in this area?
I think one was local, and then one had a regional market.
Okay, thank you. I'm guessing it's the Eco Shuttle is the local?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions, we'll entertain a motion on the amendment to the resolution 18-12-80 to include the multi-year nature of this potential contract, so up to 5 years.
So moved.
Up to
4 years.
5 years.
Oh, is it 5 years?
Yeah, so it's 1 year and then 4 additional.
1 year with 4 options.
1 year with 4 options.
So up to 5.
Wow,
Yeah,
I'm glad we're clarifying. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's up to 5 years.
Thank you.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion on the amendment to this resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Now we'll consider the actual resolution of 18-12-80 amended. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We'll give the motion to Dr. Simmons. Is there a second?
Second.
And is there any further discussion? All right, excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 4, Resolution 18-12-81. And this is authorizing a modification to a contract with Cummins Incorporated for the purchase of Cummins engine parts and Fleet Guard filtration products for TriMet bus maintenance. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, let's call up Mr. Ed Bennett as well at this time, as I just do the introduction here. Our bus fleet, approximately 700 fixed-route buses, it's equipped with Cummins engines and parts for their engines and their filtration products. This is pretty critical for basic bus maintenance, and they can only be purchased through Cummins. They have a standing agreement with TriMet that can make the purchases now at dealer net pricing. Our volume is high enough, such. So this is the same prices that would be quoted to the local Cummins dealers. This purchasing model lowers our cost by about 3% and eliminates the needs for emergency orders that cost more in inventory and such to process. 2 years ago, the board authorized a 5-year contract with Cummins in the amount of $6.573 million. Nearly 78% has been spent, and there are a number of reasons why. First, our aging new flyer buses require exhaust items to be replaced more frequently. Half those vehicles typically remain in service throughout the life of the contract. Secondly, the contract that was signed, TriMet's fleet has expanded by more than 7.5%. Due to these expansions, the buses are being operated now more miles, hours per day, and requiring more and more frequent maintenance intervals that go with the use. The service vehicle models are no longer covered under warranties that were in effect within the contract was executed, resulting in TriMet's payment of parts that would otherwise have been covered. The warranties on these additional existing buses will expire throughout the remainder of this contract. So given these factors, as well as 64 buses coming early next year, TriMet is asking the board to approve the modifications to the Cummins contract for just under $6 million, now bringing the total of the amount to $12.5 million. The request is classified as, I'll call, materials and services expense under a bus maintenance department budget, sort of general operating budget, if you will. The Northwest Territory that they provide services under has branches Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, so they've got lots of scale here. Of their 622 employees, 43% identify as part of a minority group. Your recommendation is before you. Thank you. And Ed is here, does a great job on our maintenance as a director and has all the technical knowledge.
Excellent. Thank you for that report. Questions for Ed?
Sure.
Or the general manager?
1285.
I had a question going forward. Are we to expect any more issues regarding the exhaust-related items that are going to increase our cost exponentially?
Oh, I do.
Well, as technology changes, of course, new types of exhausts are introduced into the industry. As of right now, on an exhaust on the diesel fleet, it has to be serviced every 50,000 miles. And one thing that we have done is we used to outsource having those DPFs cleaned, but now we do it in-house. So once we did it in-house, we saw a significant, when we started the program, of course, the cost or the amount of the DPFs that we were using went up, but we're actually seeing it go down now because we're bringing them in every 50,000 miles and cleaning them, doing more of a detailed preventive maintenance on the exhaust and after treatment of the buses.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? All right, seeing and hearing none. All those, actually, all those in favor. Is there any motion, is there a motion to approve Resolution 18-12-81?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
And we've had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing
An
none.
advantageous move.
Yes.
It's good. Thanks, Ed.
All right, thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 18-12-82, Columbia Pressure Washing and Relay Resources Enterprises for Custodial Goods and Services for TriMet Facilities and Transit Center. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you very much. TriMet contracts for services, restroom cleaning, vacuuming, carpet cleaning, dusting, trash removal, litter pickup, pressure washing, many of our facilities and transit centers. So unseen but highly valuable service.
Mm-hmm.
In looking for new contracts for these services, we looked at ways to increase opportunities for small business and DBE businesses specifically. To that end, the work is grouped into 5 lots of similar size and geographic area here. Prior to issuing the solicitation, we reached out to 68 DBEs, MBEs, WEs, ESBs, SDVBE. I'm running out of alphabet soup here. I apologize. Informing them of the opportunity to participate in this. The type of engagement is a long-running practice here at TriMet to provide opportunities for marginalized groups and communities. For this particular contract, TriMet received 3 technical proposals. One from CBM Systems LLC, one from Columbia Pressure Washing LLC, and one from Relay Resources. An evaluation committee found all 3 vendors to be qualified. The contracts with each of the 3 vendors will be for a 5-year term with TriMet's unilateral option to terminate for any reason for non-performance. No rate increases are allowed during the initial year of the contract. However, rate increases in subsequent years will be subject to TriMet approval going forward. The estimated contract value is $4.7 million, or 13.5% less than TriMet's independent cost estimate that we came up with. This is part of the FY19 facilities budget. And while none of the 3 qualifying firms is certified, 2 are minority owned, and the 3rd is a qualified rehabilitation facility. The minorities represent 38 and 100% of the workforce, and women represent 40 and 60% respectively. So your approval on this is recommended, and maybe if Karen Powell's here, if she has any questions, she may be able to answer those.
Excellent.
And by the way, Karen is just joined us as our new Director of Facilities Management and doing an amazing job already. So
welcome,
thank
welcome,
you.
Karen.
Welcome.
Good
You know,
morning.
it's always been encouraging with contracts like this, where we've got the opportunity to support multiple businesses in the community on a single procurement. So I've always appreciated, especially with this procurement, we've done historically, I think, a really excellent job of looking at best value, but also making sure we're being a good citizen in this space. Director Gonzalez.
Certainly. With respect to the fact that there was such outreach to so many certified vendors, we got 3 bids, none of which are officially certified. In the engagement and discussion with these firms, was the concept of pursuing a formal certification brought to their attention?
I will beg your indulgence, please, because this procurement preceded my tenure with TriMet. However, I am informed that one of the 2 firms, either Columbia or CBM, and I again must apologize, I don't recall which, is, I'm informed, in the process of formal certification as we speak.
Oh, good. Thank you. I think that, as Director Stovall noted, it's nice when we're able to spread the love, as it were, and be able to provide multiple contracts and bring those benefits of economic development to 3 entities. And whenever those entities potentially qualify, I think it could add a long-term benefit to them to kind of see what a formal certification might do, not just obviously for this relationship, but for future relationships with public entities.
Indeed, and staff will continue to encourage them to pursue such certifications.
I think I appreciate that, and I think any vendor out there who's doing business with TriMet and could qualify for one of those, it certainly behooves them to make that official.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Simmons?
General Manager, you indicated that these funds are in the FY19 budget, but it's a 5-year contract. So what it is they'll be put in reserve for the subsequent years?
Correct. It'll be a commitment going forward, contractual commitment, not only for the fiscal year, but the future ones as well.
And for the sake of being consistent, even though it may be redundant, well, it is redundant, the resolution that comes before the board doesn't specify that it is for 5 years. It just specifies the amount.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, historically, we have not put the terms in the resolutions. I mean, you're raising that now, and we can certainly perhaps do that, but really what your delegated authority approvals that you gave back in October of 2017, it was really about the amounts of the contracts. We didn't really discuss in their terms, and we haven't historically. So if this is a kind of a different change that you guys want to do, maybe we can discuss that.
At maybe some other time, yeah. I think my main concern in the other contract was that it was such a large amount for a shuttle, and it was sort of buried in the, I mean, it was stated there, but it wasn't stated as clearly as this is a 5-year contract in terms of the narrative. And for anyone looking on and looking at one piece, one document, I'm not thinking staff, I'm thinking the public.
Sure.
It jumps out at you if it's not absolutely made clear that it's a multi-year contract.
We can certainly tighten up the board memos and make sure that they're consistent which always are paired with the resolutions, and explain why the board is taking its action to make sure that the term is clearly spelled out.
Yeah. If other board members aren't concerned about that, I will withdraw my concern. I just wanted to raise it because I'd already been consistent on one. I'd be consistent on another.
Okay.
Director Gonzalez.
Thank you once again, Director Stovall. And I have a clarification question regarding how TriMet tracks its own diversity spend in procurement. In an instance like this where we have minority-owned businesses but don't have a formal certification, would TriMet consider that part of, included in a diversity spend, or part of tracking a diversity spend?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Hey, one comment I might add here, that I spoke earlier at the Finance and Audit Committee about the reorganization we've done. I might just use this to add in. This scenario, I think TriMet's got a great track record of DBE support, particularly on the capital side. We're going to be putting a new resource in, reporting into our finance area, around how do we simplify our contracts, create more marketplace opportunities for people in the general operating side. And I think, and there's also a way to even enhance and invest in future opportunities for DBEs and others to compete and go for businesses. We help nurture them and develop them. So I just wanted to mention that I think we want to continue to be a thought leader in this area, not just on the capital piece, but this is kind of new frontier on the general operating budget, which is going to be a different way to look at it. So these types of things we're going to be getting more and more into.
Good, glad to hear that. And I urge the agency to ensure that there is some check and rigor in the process of determining when someone, especially when they're not formally certified by a third party, is being counted in that direction. I think it's very important work to do, and it's very important for us to have a clear standard by which we get to determine it for ourselves. We want to all have faith in the good work that's being done, and when the numbers come out, I think we want to have faith in them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are we ready to entertain a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor to approve Resolution 18-12-82, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving to Resolution 18-12-83, The next resolution is authorizing a contract with Complete Coachworks for driver protection system units for New Flyer and Gillick buses. We had a brief presentation on this during the GM's comments. So, Mr. General Manager.
I'm going to keep the comments on this very brief because you've already been briefed on this. I will add that these type of, I'll call shields, it's important that it's a tool in their toolbox for our frontline operators. So we don't lose touch with the customer, but it helps them mitigate risk as we go. We are on all new bus purchases, they are coming standard now. So part of this is going back to say that's not enough. I think we've been learning on them. I think Director Supporta gave a couple great examples where they're already proving of their value. As we all know, one is too many. And I think it's how do you retrofit the rest of the fleet. So the trend does continue to be challenging for us, and these are the steps we've got to take in addition to the ones that Harry talked about, legislative in nature, but this is really around a capital retrofit on existing fleets. So the contract here is proposed for 5 years with the installation of safety panels spanning that period of time. There's no price increases allowed for the term, and we strongly recommend the proceeding on this for the reasons that you've already seen in the briefing and asked questions on.
All right, thank you for that, that summary. This is something certainly we have talked about and discussed and done quite a few trials to ensure we get the right product. And the most important financial piece is really protecting our operators from potential assault and the things that are associated with that. So it's really exciting to see us being able to move forward with something like this. Sad that we have to have it based on kind of the nature of what's going on, but certainly you want to make sure that we're moving forward and protecting our operators. Director Gonzalez.
Thank you, Director Stovall. The safety benefit of these systems is clearly being demonstrated, and we have great actual examples where they've been beneficial to us already. Now that we have a few out there, do you also have a read on how this might impact from the customer service side of things? I know that keeping folks safe is important, but we also aren't trying to create too much of a barrier and a distance. Have we hit a good, happy place between safety and being able to see and interact with customers with the system?
Yeah, I might comment on this, and if Harry or Marlo wants to come up, they're welcome to. When this committee was put together, a cross-functional committee, including the ATU themselves, some of the barriers, if you go to other markets, the operator is totally sealed in. So we're trying to balance that intersection of safety and the customer experience. I ride the system basically every day, and when I talk to operators anecdotally, they're liking this. I've asked our customers as well, and they're not seeing a barrier from the customer, because most of the time it's been kept partially closed or open. The dialogue between the customer and the driver is really important, and it's still continuing nicely. So I think the design of this is actually really appropriate. It's not a sealed in, but it is a tool based on risk. It's the operator's sense of risk. They have to be in control of that. They're the commander of that ship, that four-wheeled ship. And so we have not heard any customer feedback, because I had checked in our customer logs about a month ago, and nothing was showing up to the contrary that it's a problem. But we will have to watch this, I think.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, are there any further questions or discussion in regards to this resolution?
I think I had a question in regards to the life of the buses that we're going to be altering here, and I guess it's a redundant question, though, because we do need to make the buses safe, but I just wonder how much, because we're putting this expense in here, and then these buses are going to be eventually outmoded. That's my concern and issue, but we'll keep it moving.
Yeah, the only thing I would just think, to me, safety trumps. And exactly. Sometimes there's regret spending you'd rather not spend. Our average length of a bus is about 16 years, so we're getting a very good run beyond industry average anyway of 12 to 14. We'll reuse the elements we can, because the basic of it is pretty intact. There may be some modifications we have to make, but I think this is one of these times where safety is a value. Right. And I think really, frankly, would defend strong on that.
Mm-hmm. So. Thank you.
All right, is someone willing or ready to present a motion for Resolution 18-12-83?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing? Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say I appreciate the diligence in looking for something that does balance customer experience and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. And as everybody has mentioned, this has been a project that has actually been on the table for a little bit of time. And we're excited to see it come to fruition so that we can move forward with making sure we protect our operators. I know we're running pretty consistent here this morning, but again, we're making sure that we get through the business of the day in the fashion that we need to be able to ensure that we can do this with a quorum. So we're going to go ahead and work through the next two resolutions and just go ahead and move forward. So Resolution 18-12-84, Global Signals Group for construction services for the Cleveland Max Station, Signal and Communication System and Equipment. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you very much. So this one, I'm just going to call up Steve Witter while I'm introducing this one. Firstly, there is a typo, a numeric typo that I'd ask you to correct that was passed along this morning. The amount for $2,783,416.23. The one number that is off on here is it should be 2793, not 2783. The rest of the numbers are all correct, so I just ask you to correct that. Is that
That's correct. Thank you.
So thank you. And so the fair cost estimate would be basically $2.8 million. You've heard before about the Cleveland Max Station for the signal communication from prior board meetings. This also includes demolition of the outdated equipment. This is a really important facility for us. As a reminder, Cleveland Avenue is a light rail park and ride station in Gresham. And as I've been told, is the new Lake Oswego.
Exactly. Right? Very much so.
So service began there in 1986 with the construction of the Max Blue Line. When looking at the future, the station is expected to be the final stop for the Division Transit Project. The project would demolish and replace the aging buildings damaged beyond repair by leaks and mold, and some of it is extensive. It would also replace existing signals in the communication equipment. Again, the purpose for this contract specifically before you. The RFP ultimately resulted in one proposal from Global Signals Group. We contacted several firms to find out why they did not respond to the RFP as a follow-up, and some firms did not believe they could offer a competitive price. Others did not have enough staffing for the project. The staff determined the RFP did not unfairly limit competition and moved forward with the review of the Global's proposal, which was found to be fair and reasonable by our staff. The amount, as I've mentioned to you, is $2.79 million rounding here. It's in our fiscal 19 budget. It's also expected to be covered within the capital improvement program, again multi-yeared, for 2021 and paid with the bond proceeds. The workforce of Global is comprised of 12.5% women and 12.5% minority. They also expect to contract, or subcontract, I should say, 10 to 15% of the work to certified firms in the area specifically for communications. Your approval is recommended. Any comments, Steve, you have?
None at this time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for the General Manager or staff? All right, well, hearing none, thank you. Are there, yes.
So, yes, when you ask for the motion, if you could just make it clear on the record that you're asking for approval of the resolution in the amount of $2,793,416.23. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you, General Counsel. So, is there a motion to approve Resolution 18-12-84 for the total contract amount of $2,793,416.23. Those details. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? I always like improvements that are going on out in Gresham.
Yeah, this is a bit of an interest of mine with regards to the outreach efforts and getting bid respondents. Clearly, if you have noticed the theme in today's comments, I'm especially interested in at a good opportunity that makes sense to TriMet. I'd love to just dig a little deeper into how we go about reaching out and what we're learning from why folks are selecting not to respond. I think there's some lessons there just in the marketplace. So I would appreciate the opportunity to get an understanding for what our actual outreach is and how we go about getting the feedback from folks who select not to respond.
Director Gonzalez, I think I am, nor is Karen Urata, maybe the expert on the procurement outreach. I think it would be beneficial to have our procurement team come and talk to you in a more broader sense. I will say with this particular work, railroad signals is a very competitive market right now. I think you've heard me up here once or twice talk about positive train control, which is a FRA mandate across the country. Our West Commuter Rail is in the midst of completing its positive train control. So there's a tremendous pressure on these specific contractors nationwide. Global, the sole proposer here is actually a local company. So in terms of, I think, their competitiveness, that makes them more competitive in this market. And I think it's worth noting they are actually comprised of some staff members that have been on the TriMet Signals crew, both in maintenance and design in the past. So again, local company, tough market. But I would, if you would grant us the opportunity to bring the procurement team here, we could probably have a more global conversation about that.
I'd appreciate that. I know that we do great, fantastic work in inclusion and supporting our certified business community. But I also know that there's still ways we can do better, and how we reach out and make invitations in the beginning is one of the steps that might not get us more respondents this round, but might help position us for having more respondents in the future. I think growing the industry and beginning with the invitation is important. I appreciate the work you do. Thank you.
Very good.
I might just add to this. I think this is actually really poignant because this is a very hot market in this area right now. If you look at Seattle to the north with their $56 billion program, including lots of rail, LA to the south, PTC, as Steve's spoken about, and even when Steve and I were just over a week ago down at the FTA in Washington, D.C., on one of the sidebar discussions, this topic came up. It is a very hot market for these type of trades. So I think the learning actually will help us be more competitive as well. So I think that's a really great point, and we will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, appreciate the discussion. Is there any more discussion? All right, with that, is there a motion to approve?
A motion's pending. Motion's pending that it was made by
yes.
Director Edwards and seconded by Director Simmons.
We do have the motion. It's already been seconded. We were in discussion. All those in favor for the motion, let me actually just make sure that it's 18-12-84, and with the change of going to, I've already moved it, $2,793,416.23. It's going to be reflected. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you so very, very much. All right, for our last resolution, Resolution 18-12-85. This resolution is about authorizing a contract with Morrison Stevens Incorporated for the fourth bus base site property management services. Wow, that's a long one. But we've gotten a little bit of a briefing on this as a board. Mr. General Manager.
Just a few comments on this one. I think this one's had lots of previous discussion at the board. We are, in essence, We expect to be in control of the property by January 1st of 2019. The property management services will be likely needed from 2019 and possibly through 2022. We did issue a competitive RFP for the project. Of the 3 proposals received, Norris and Stevens was the highest ranked and the only one in the competitive range for the award. The term of the contract, 1 year, with the option to extend for 4 additional 1-year terms. The maximum amount, if all options are exercised, is $3.678 million. And the funding is already included in our 18-19 capital budget. And I should comment, the last point I would make is Norris and Stevens, the workforce is 38% women and 7% minorities. The company estimated it will use the key contractors for MBE, WBE, ESB, SD, VDE subcontractors for about 60% of the services in the area for the security, janitorial, and landscaping. Your approval is recommended as our last report today.
All right, excellent. Are there any questions for General Manager and Lance? I'm not hearing any questions. So with that, is there a motion to approve Resolution 1812-85? We've got the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? As we've already referenced, we've done quite a bit of work with this item, and so we've got a lot of information already. With that said, at this point in time, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Any abstentions? Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you so very, very much.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you, Lance. That was excellent.
Best quote of the
Way to
day,
go.
Lance.
You nailed it.
Needs to go last, I think.
Yeah.
Nothing but the
Guess
net.
so. So with that, the last thing on our business agenda this morning is the ordinance, Ordinance 352. And so we'll move on to the proposed ordinance that is very much a housekeeping issue and measure that makes TriMet changes to the TriMet code. I will turn over to TriMet General Counsel Shelley Devine for the first reading of this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Board Vice President. Ordinance number 352 of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, amending Chapter 14 of the TriMet Code to revise the definition of net earnings from self-employment. This is the first reading.
All right. Thank you, Shelley. And at this point in time, I believe, well, do we have any questions from the board on this item? This is pretty much a housekeeping item that we generally go through fairly regularly. This will be something new for the new board members.
I guess my only question is, what impact does this have?
I'm happy to address that. I wasn't sure whether the public hearing goes first or after. It's not in, okay. So we'll just start with, usually the board president turns it over to me to just give a brief explanation of this ordinance. As Director Stovall said, this is a housekeeping ordinance. We do it every year. It's like the holidays. It comes and visits. And the main reason for that is TriMet has the authority under our enabling statute, ORS 267, to adopt the federal definition of net earnings from self-employment as its own definition, so that people who are self-employed and paying the TriMet tax have clarity that what they're paying when they're paying their TriMet tax is the same as what they're paying to the federal government. The reason that we have to do this every single year is because the Oregon Constitution prevents public agencies like TriMet from adopting future amendments, meaning we can't just do a prospective amendment and say every time the federal Internal Revenue Code changes the definition of net earnings from self-employment, we'll do it too. We have to do it every year. So that's the reason that we do it, the reason that we have the ordinance. And then the underlying reason, of course, why we do it is to provide clarity for our taxpayers that pay self-employment taxes, so that they know that they're matching the federal definition with the TriMet definition of what net earnings from self-employment is. So that's why we do it. So this is a first reading. Any changes to the TriMet code have to be done by ordinance, and we'll be voting on it next month. So.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And this is an annual occurrence.
Correct.
I mean, we have to connect this annually, so you'll see this.
And
again.
just as one last thing, we're connecting it to the federal definition as of a date certain, and that date this year is the federal code as it's written as of December 31st, 2018.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any additional questions for Shelley? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Shelley. I will open the floor up for public comment on the ordinance, which I'm sure the list is probably long. Written comments are already received online through the mail and have been shared with the board. Comment cards completed today will be forwarded to all board members and will become part of the formal public hearing record. In a moment, I will invite those who have signed up to speak to come up two at a time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. When the light, actually we don't have our lights, but we will give you notice. This is to ensure equal time for each person who comments and maximizes the number of people who can comment. If you wish to share additional information after your 3 minutes, you can include them in the comment cards, and at this point, public comment will now be taken. And seeing that there are no public comments, document, or forms here, is anybody actually interested in giving public comment on Ordinance 352? Seeing none, we will now close the public comment. As usual, with an ordinance, there is no vote today. The second reading of and a vote will be taken at the board meeting on January 23rd, 2019. Is there any other business to come before the board? Any board members have any specific items to cover? All right, if not, that's everything for this morning. If there's no other business, we'll call this meeting adjourned, and we'll take a few moment break for the board briefing, and let's just get an idea. So Director Gonzalez actually has to depart. I'm just wondering the value of the board briefing with just the 3 board members. Is there something that's time dependent on the board briefing agenda, which we
there is not today, unless Bernie had anything that's crucial and legislative, which I don't think there is. I would suggest what we can do is defer these for time's sake until the full board is available for the next board meeting in January or February. But a couple of these will have to show forward in January, I think. So I would suggest defer.
I'm looking at the board members. I mean, this is not really, in my opinion, it's not about time. It's so much about value. If we've only got 3 board members, that's not quite a quorum even, and it would be limited into the board briefing.
Yeah, and I do believe the corporate risk registry is going to become an important part as it feeds into our business plan. So I think it would be high value for all board members to receive the information and then opine and give management feedback.
Okay, so I'm hearing we're going to move, postpone the board presentations to some point in the future. I will say that, you know, our illustrious board president wasn't here today, and so I'm just not as good as he is. I mean, I've been sitting next to him for like 12 to 15 years, and I still can't get it all down right. And I do want to highlight that Chris did take me up on moving from the back of the room to the front. So welcome, Chris. Thank you for doing that. With that, if there's no other comments or business to come before the board, we'll conclude even the board briefing at this point in time. So thank you guys for coming. Have a phenomenal holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did great.